When Catherine first spotted the unusual holes in her baby's nose, she panicked completely. She had no idea what might have caused this or how serious it could be, a reality she would soon face. That very afternoon, she rushed to the doctor, but when he examined her baby, the news for Catherine was grim. 40-year-old Catherine is a single mother who has had her share of unsuccessful relationships in the past. She hoped this time would be different. After spending considerable time preparing for her date, she genuinely wanted it to go well, especially since it would be their first in-person meeting. However, things didn't go as planned. She had met the man online and knew it was a long shot, but she decided to give it a try. The date turned out to be unremarkable. He seemed disinterested in her baby, Roy, from a previous relationship. Unsure if she wanted to see him again, Catherine went to bed that night. The morning after the date, Catherine noticed something unusual about baby Roy. He seemed to be in discomfort, frequently scratching his nose. Upon closer inspection, she was horrified to find tiny holes inside his nose. Initially thinking something might be stuck, she realized the holes were actually digging into his skin. When she pressed gently, Roy began to cry. Alarmed and uncertain about what was happening, Catherine knew she had to act quickly. She called the doctor, who arranged a semi-emergency appointment for that afternoon. Although there were others ahead of them, they assured her that they would see her by the end of the day at the latest. The doctor told Catherine that she needed to think about anything that had been different recently that could have caused this, anything out of the ordinary. It would greatly help the doctor figure out what exactly was wrong. Catherine agreed to think about it and hung up the phone. What could have done this? She didn't really know. Catherine thought back over the last week. She and her baby hadn't really done anything too out of the ordinary. They had gone on a hike through the forest a couple of days ago, and the baby easily could have touched something out there, maybe a mushroom or a contaminated piece of moss. It was difficult to think of anything that was out of routine. Catherine was an average girl. She didn't do much except hike occasionally and go to the local coffee shop. She worked from home and didn't go outside that much. She really was a boring person. But then it hit her. There was something else that was out of the ordinary. Catherine had gone on a date the night before. She had been talking with a man online for a while and had eventually decided to go on a date. Catherine had been excited to try out dating again. She still hadn't found her soulmate and was hoping that this date would go well. Things took an unexpected turn from the moment the date began. Catherine felt like something was off about the man. He didn't really seem interested in her or her baby. It was almost like he despised her for being a single mom. But as soon as she started thinking this, he would do something that showed he was invested. It was just a strange date, but there was something more. Thinking back, Catherine wasn't sure why he had even contacted her in the first place. Looking through her messages with him, she could see more and more that he didn't really like her. She had just been a bit desperate and wasn't thinking clearly. Could he have something to do with all of this? Catherine couldn't see how he could be involved. They hadn't gotten physical at all, and she hadn't contacted him since last night. He hadn't messaged her either. If he had done something, wouldn't he have said something? Catherine wasn't sure, but it was time for Roy's appointment. She had to go. While in the waiting room at the doctor's office, baby Roy was getting a ridiculous amount of attention. At this point, the holes in his nose were very plain to see, and everyone around him was shocked by what they were witnessing. Catherine didn't notice too much until the curiosity of the other people became increasingly obvious. Once inside the doctor's office, the doctor was able to take a proper look at Roy's nose, and he was shocked. He had never seen anything like this. He would remember if he had. Something like this wasn't something you just forgot. Even more concerning, the doctor hadn't even heard of anything like this in his medical books. He was clueless. The doctor ordered tests for Catherine, and while they waited for the results, he studied Roy's nose intensely. The strange thing was that, while baby Roy had been crying earlier, he didn't anymore. His whole nose was completely numb. Catherine decided that she needed some air, so she went to use the bathroom and let her baby sleep while she was gone. Meanwhile, the doctor received a private message from the forum. He opened it eagerly, hoping that it contained the answer he had been seeking, and to his luck, it did. However, it was also terrible news, and everything would have to change quickly. Another doctor had indeed seen this condition before, and if they didn't do something soon, it could turn into a very big problem for everyone, including Catherine. Catherine's doctor waited for the results, which came in almost immediately after he had read the message from the forum. This was it. He had the results, and they chilled him to the bone. The other doctor had been right. Catherine's doctor left his office, and soon the whole place was in disarray. When Catherine returned from the bathroom, Roy's nose was not looking good. The holes were starting to spread to the rest of his nose, and Catherine was getting really scared now. She knew she had to show the doctor, but there was just one problem. The door she had just come through had been locked from the outside. She and her baby were trapped in there, and to make things even worse, she could hear the doctor telling others that he had called the police. Nervous and scared, Catherine was increasingly worried by the staff's reaction to the baby's nose. What was so bad? Was he going to die? A million thoughts were running through her head. She tried to stay calm, but that was becoming impossible. After a few kicks, the door lock broke, and the door swung open. The people on the other side started screaming, and Catherine's doctor stood back. Catherine stood there, panting hard. It hadn't been easy to kick the door open, but she needed answers, and someone had to tell her what was going on. Right then, Catherine's doctor ordered everyone else to get away and told Catherine to stay back. She shouldn't get close to anyone right now. The fear on her doctor's face told Catherine everything she needed to know about her and her baby's fate. But Catherine was determined. She told them that she wouldn't stay back unless they gave her answers. Before her doctor could speak, 3 armed officers came into the building and spotted Catherine. The doctor pointed at her and started screaming, "It's them." All 3 officers took out their pistols and aimed them carefully at Catherine, who was feeling faint. What the heck was going on? Catherine quickly threw her hands up into the air as the police turned their attention to her. She almost had tears in her eyes and begged them all to just tell her what was going on, seeing that the holes in baby Roy's nose had taken up almost half of it now. The police instructed her to stay back. One officer calmly explained to Catherine that they would provide her with all the information, but she and her baby needed to be isolated immediately. Her doctor first apologized for not informing Catherine about the situation sooner. He had been frightened. It wasn't every day that a patient with a severe flesh-eating virus came in, and he had to follow protocols he had never encountered before. He felt terrible, but there was more to discuss. He asked Catherine about her activities the day before, revealing that she had gone for a hike and then had a date that night. Fortunately for Catherine, the bad date wasn't the source of the problem. Instead, it was likely that her baby had come into contact with an infected plant during her hike. But which one? Thankfully, the hospital had the necessary medication, but the baby would need to remain in isolation for a while. The police had become involved to question Catherine about her hike, and when they saw her outside the isolated room, they panicked, mirroring the doctor's alarm. It was a chaotic situation. However, there was more to the story. The officers cordoned off the trail, and after extensive searching, they discovered a plant that was not native to the area. Testing confirmed it was the cause of Catherine's issues. The plant was uprooted and disposed of. Since then, there had been no further cases, and within a month, Catherine had fully recovered and was ready to start dating again.